the Dream 100 Show. The epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tasner.
What if I could give you one strategy that costs you absolutely nothing, that can help grow your authority, generate a whole bunch more leads and opportunities, and just completely catapult your brand? Would that be of interest to you? In today's episode of the Dream 100 Show, I want to talk about all things content. Now, as marketing people, as business owners, we often get sucked into that shiny object. We get sucked into what's trending right now. And obviously, AI is trending, but there was a very interesting article that was just released from MIT about all things AI and is it actually helping businesses' P&L statements? And the answer in the article was no. It said in 95% of the cases, the answer was no. However, what the article didn't really go into extensive details on was that the areas that actually are working extremely well from an AI perspective is marketing. Leveraging AI in tandem with the people at your organization is a recipe to absolutely dominate. So how does that tie into content, and what is the theme for today's episode? So one of the things that I've been looking at over the last 6 to 12 months is this notion around trust. Trust with businesses of all different shapes and sizes and businesses across all the different industries is going the wrong direction. Trust is not increasing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the biggest reasons right now is that when people don't have as much disposable income, or they feel, keyword feel, that the economy is not where they would like to see it, they start to recoil a little bit and they start to second guess decisions. But the businesses that I see that are absolutely thriving right now are those that have stood the test of time from a trust perspective. And when it comes to building, growing, and gaining new trust, my favorite way to do it is via content. So the great thing about content, social media content, video content, articles, the only thing that it's going to cost you is your time. That's it. There's no expensive tools and software that you necessarily need to use. Now, leveraging AI to help prompt you, which we're going to get to in a minute, will definitely help speed the process up a little bit. But if you were to say, Michael, you've trained me on all things Dream 100. What can I do in addition while things are continuing to scale to further enhance my trust? And that is to put together a robust content strategy. But here is where things take a very interesting turn. And I'm not going to claim any of the credit for this. I'm going to claim some of the credit on one of the strategies that I've been talking about for close to 20 years. But I want to give credit to a gentleman named Marcus Sheridan. And he has written a couple of different books. His most recent book is Endless Customers. But his first book was They Ask, You Answer. And I want to give you some of the kind of high points, but most importantly, the action steps that I want to see you start moving in the next 30 days to improve your trust and to generate more opportunities. So the first step is going to be a little bit of the easier step. And that is, I want you to go through and make a list of the top 10, 15, 20, whatever that number is, the questions that you are getting asked. Your sales team is getting asked. Anyone that's within your team, regardless of the type of business. If you own a landscaping company, you're going to have the questions that people are asking before they become a customer. What are some of the other questions that are being asked? So you've got people cutting grass, for example. What are the homeowners running out of their house saying, hey, what do you think about X? Or should you be cutting the lawn when it's lightly raining? And how does it affect this? And how do I get rid of these weeds? And whatever all of those questions are, you're going to make that list. The second set of questions is looking at what are the things that people are not asking you. So they might be asking the standard set of questions, but you know the industry better than they do. What are the things they should be asking you that they don't necessarily ask? So for example, if they were looking at having a bunch of new landscaping put in, and they might ask you about price, they might ask you how long does this take? But maybe they should ask, what's the difference between regular mulch and rubber mulch? And will it help with weeds? Yes or no? Maybe they should be asking, how long will these plants last, these bushes, before you need to do a refresh? Maybe they should be asking about different types of stone, and are these stones going to fade, or do you have to power wash them if they get dirty, for example? What are those things that you're like, they ask me about price and how fast can I get it done? But they really should be asking these questions. So your step one is to make a list again of the top questions you get asked. And then the second set are the questions that you often do not get asked that you believe people should be asking. Now, the strategy that I've been talking about for close to 20 years is extremely simple. You're going to take those questions and you're going to start answering them through video. Now, my preference when you answer these through video is that you ramble a little bit. And I don't want you to necessarily not answer the question, but I want you to add as much context to that particular question as you possibly can, because some people, they're going to want the 10-second version of the question answered. You'll have other people that want a longer version answered. But what I want you to then do is you're going to use that video for your website. It can also go up on YouTube, all your social media. But you're going to get that video transcribed. You're going to edit the transcriptions and start to make blog posts and more social media content. So you take those videos, you leverage them all over the place, and then you leverage the actual content. You can't go backwards outside of using tools like Google VO3 where it's text to video. I want these to be ideally the owner of the business shooting them and or some personalities within your team. So yes, can you clone yourself on video 100%? But I'm looking for these to be a little bit more raw, a little bit more real, so that you knock these questions out. So that is your step one. Now, step two is where this strategy goes to a whole new level. I want you to start talking about all of the things that the industry considers faux pas. What are all the things that don't get discussed? So let's stick on landscaping, and then we're going to pick another niche or two so that you can kind of get the frame of what I'm referring to here. So you're going to answer, and you're going to go through these questions that you get asked. You're going to knock those out. And they're probably going to be things like price, what type of, I don't think people are going to ask necessarily what machinery you're using. They might. Do you bag the grass, or do you just have it cut and it's all over the place? What services are offered when it comes to weekly maintenance? If they're installing beds, again, price, what are the types of bushes that you recommend? What type of maintenance is needed? But then what are some of the things that are, again, faux pas in the industry? The biggest one that makes everyone uncomfortable is traditionally price. They don't want to talk about price. But if you know that 75+% of people would prefer to go to your website and actually see a price and or a range, I want you to highly consider starting to put things like that on your website. You might have a lengthy video that you do that then becomes a blog post as well that talks about here's the average price to install a new bed. Here's the average price for a fall cleanup. The average price for a spring cleanup. Here's what's included. Here's what can make the price go higher and or lower. And if you know that none of your competitors are doing this stuff, you already are going to be in a league of your own, but then the trust factor starts to increase. If no one else is doing it, but you're willing to call out the price, you have a higher perceived level of trust. Take this another step further. So you're going to talk about price. What if you were to talk about jobs that have went wrong? What if you're going to do an article about houses or types of landscaping that you cannot help? What if you did an article that talked about 5 to 10 of the other local landscaping companies and you did a comparison? So we're really good at these 5 things, but if you're also looking for some other help, here are a few other companies you could consider. I promise you, your competitors are not doing that. They're not going to put other competitors' names on their website. But if you do it in a tactful way, and it's not where you're aiming to defame them or say that you are the only game in town, you're saying, here's what we're really great at, but here are some other options. So if you're looking more for a landscaper that specializes in the lighting side, then you're going to want to look over here. We specialize more in hardscapes, for example. Now, let's look at some other niches. Let's look at it and say you're like my business, a marketing agency. Most marketing agencies will never disclose price. The process is you fill out a form, you get on a sales call, they size things up, and then they give you a price based on what you're kind of telling. So it's prescription based. We're going all in on this exact framework and going to do the exact opposite. We're going to talk about all the prices. We're going to be calling everything out. Here's where we shine. Here's where other businesses shine. The other interesting thing is, from a search standpoint, you're going to start to then potentially get some traffic from people that are searching for your competitors that then find you because you have this great comparison article, which tools like Claude and ChatGPT love. What if you were to look at a lawyer? So you've got a law firm, for example, professional services, same kind of thing. You might say, well, we're different. Like, we don't know until we talk to them what the fees are going to be. Well, can you provide some ranges? Can you talk about who you're best for, who you're not a great fit for? Can you talk about some of the other law offices that if they don't go with you, they should consider these? If you start to be more transparent online with your content, your trust will go up. Your trust will increase. Your search traffic will increase. And it all goes back to content. Everything is a content game. I used to publish, and I don't know why I haven't done it in the last couple of years, but I used to publish a yearly trends of, like, here are the marketing trends. I would send this out to our email database only. So I'm going to redo this year. And for probably 5 years in a row, they almost started off exactly the same. Content marketing is still king. Content is king. Content outshined everything else. So when you are going and trying to chase the shiny object with this new ad platform, that new platform, this fancy tool, where you should be investing your time is answering the questions that you're getting asked most often, answering the questions that people aren't asking, and then being vulnerable on all of the things that your customers want to know, but you normally don't want to talk about. As you start to disclose that, and you become the only company that's willing to do that on social media, on long-form blog posts, on videos all over the place. Let's say you've got an e-commerce company. Let's say that you're selling, trying to pick a random thing. Let's say you're selling things for dog owners. They're obviously going to see price, but how else could you then compete and be able to give extra content? Well, maybe talk about the best dog breeds compared to the worst. And you might say, well, that's going to offend some people. You're not necessarily calling out and saying these are the worst dog breeds, but these are the best for families, for single people, for ones with other households that have another dog in them or another pet. Start to call things out that other people are not willing to do. I've used a phrase many times on this podcast of take a stand or get in the stands. That is my homework for you today. Brainstorm the questions that don't get asked, and then I want you to look at what are the things that you typically will only talk about in a private setting by way of content on a sales call after they've become a customer, for example. Let's get all those things out of the way. If you've got a clothing business and you don't want to say, well, our shirts normally don't fit people that are a little bit larger, you're going to have higher returns, more complaints, why not call that out and do a post about it? Well, I'm worried about offending some people. The downside of you not doing that, again, is your returns, your negative reviews. Call out who you're right for. Talk about the things that your competitors are not willing to do. That is my homework for you today. Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll see you next week.